This video came across my feed recently. And like, I watch a lot of climate stuff on YouTube. Like I watch Just Have a Think, I watch Undecided with Matt Farrell, I watch Climate Atom, I watch Zenturo. These are all channels you should watch that are trying in different ways to help people understand the very real and complicated problem of climate change and the very real and complicated solutions that we're working on. So I think if YouTube is handing me this video, it's not because it's like a big video for the climate skeptics to get like really jazzed about. Like that's a different kind of video. This isn't that kind of video. So I clicked on it in part because like, it's strange that YouTube surfaced it to me. It makes me think it's reaching a pretty wide audience. Like it has a lot of views, but also I think it's reaching people who aren't necessarily like solidly in one camp or the other here. But I also clicked on it because the thumbnail made me think, actually, I like this kind of content. You know, it's really good to be skeptical of charts. It's really good to question people's innate framing. It's good to ask whether we're being manipulated by visuals. It's good to ask, like, a good graph and a bad graph. People have complicated ideas around good and bad graphs, and also very simplistic ones that I think are wrong. Like, just because the axis doesn't go all the way to zero, that doesn't necessarily mean a graph is bad. Sometimes that's useful. The thing is the understanding that the graph puts in your head reflective of what the graph is actually of. Like that's what's good and bad about a graph. And sometimes not having the axis be at zero can do that. You know, you can magnify differences that aren't very big. But that's not necessarily a graph crime if you understand what's going on or if there's a good reason to do that. So I love content like this because we really do need to be careful as members of society to not just believe everything we see. You know, not every graph is right. Some graphs are straight wrong. Some graphs put wrong ideas in your head. It's good to think about graphs. And there's all kinds of things trying to make you freaked out and scared about the world. And sometimes those things are graphs. And the ones that make people more freaked out, even if they are less representative of reality, they're the ones that get spread more because, of course, they're more salient. We'll pay more attention to them. So I'm like, yeah, hit me with some graph analysis. But what I found was, I mean, it's amazing. This video is a masterclass. It's a masterclass in like very subtle manipulations. A lot of the internet is really brute force here. But this video is like just appears to be a calm, collected guy helping you understand the world better. And there's a world in which I would just believe that's what he was trying to do. He just believes different things from me, which is fine. Like we're all going to believe different things. But if you look closely, if you follow this closely, you see the subtle manipulations in a way that makes it so clear that this is bad faith and that he is making an argument not because he believes it, but because he has an agenda. And so I did not have time to make this video this week, but I had to make this video because there are so many little tricks that this guy is using, but talking to you about them right now is not going to do the work. We're going to watch the video together.
Bloomberg columnist Mark Gongloff says this scary looking chart is something that climate denialists can't ignore.
All right, we've started off with Bloomberg columnist Mark Gongloff.
Because it shows how much hotter the world has been getting since 1930. The chart should actually look like this.
And we're going to get into why the chart should actually look like this.
How about this terrifying graph showing record warm temperatures?
I mean, honestly, if you hadn't told me that graph was terrifying, I would have just thought that it was kind of similar to a lot of climate graphs I've seen and be like, well, if I'm going to be terrified by that, there's a lot of the stuff to be terrified by.
It should look like this.
This one actually shouldn't. It shouldn't look like that. But we'll get into, like, the first one I actually agree. So, important. This guy found a bad graph, 100%, or somebody found a bad graph. That first graph is pretty bad. And I agree, that's a good graph to have some corrections for.
These are two examples of how climate scientists manipulate data to generate scary-looking charts.
Oh, interesting. What I heard you say is that this was from a Bloomberg columnist, not from a climate scientist. Because the idea that this man has just now put into my head is that that graph is from a scientific paper. But we've got a Bloomberg columnist making a claim about a graph, and now we're talking about how climate scientists are alarmists. That's interesting. It's going to come up again.
Global warming is real, but using statistical tricks to frighten people into panicking about it poisons the public discourse and leads to bad policy decisions.
Thankfully, very well done, very well constructed. We've got our thesis statement right up front. It's like we're writing a high school essay, and this is a good one. The thesis of this video, and of much of the modern climate denialist, or I guess we should say climate contrarian community now, because they agree that global warming is happening, it's being created by humans, but now we've got this last fight to fight, which is, okay, it is real, we give in. Okay, it is caused by humans, we give in, but it's not worth doing anything about. That's the last battle they get to fight, and they will fight it until they are completely sidelined and irrelevant, which will happen eventually. Maybe in your lifetime, maybe not in mine. So climate change is real, but it's not a big deal. That's the basic case that we're making here. Spoiler, we're not going to make that case in this video, but many people who watch this video will end the video thinking that the case has been made.
Both of these charts are known as hockey stick graphs.
They're not. There's one hockey stick graph. This is the hockey stick graph. There's not like a class of graph known as hockey stick graphs. He just made that up.
Because they show a sharp, alarming upward turn in temperature. Here's the original hockey stick graph from 1998.
It is! It's Michael Mann's original 1998 hockey stick graph. Now, keep in mind, 1998, still, it's a pretty long time ago. But we've got our hockey stick graph here, and indeed, it does look fairly worrying.
It was created by climate activist Michael Mann.
All right, so now we have a Bloomberg columnist being an example of bad behavior of climate scientists, and we have Michael Mann here, who is a climate activist. That's his title, according to this video. Is Michael Mann a climate activist? I'd say, yeah, that could be a fair title for Michael Mann. He's also definitely a climate scientist. Like, that's his primary job, is that he does research on the climate. Has he also done advocacy? Yes, I think he should do advocacy. I think that climate scientists should do advocacy. Call me crazy. I think they should do it well. I think that if they don't do it well, they shouldn't do it. I think that if they do it well, they should. And I think that he does it well. I've seen Michael Mann and other climate scientists disagree with each other. That's part of the process of science. But I just wanted to point out that he introduces Michael Mann as a climate activist, because that's going to be important later.
The graph that we published told a pretty simple story. You didn't have to understand the complex workings of Earth's climate system, the physics and the math.
And this is true. This is a nice thing about global average mean temperature rise. So we just look at the Earth and we see how much the temperature has risen over the last 100 or 150 or 1,000 or 2,000 or 20,000 years, and we see these changes. And I'm interested in like the frame of this video, which is that these are two bad graphs and we can do them better. The thesis of the video you're watching right now is this is one bad graph, but we don't ever use that graph. Like, let's go to Google and type in climate change graph and see what we get. Like, are we gonna get that graph? We get a CO2 emissions graph, we get global average surface temperature, we get global temperatures, we get temperature versus solar activity. So that's kind of helps you understand that those things aren't related. You've got this one, 1850 to 2000. You got this one, 1850 to 2025. This kind of graph has become increasingly popular and useful. I like these. These are nice. They show you like how high more recent years are. And then you got this one down here, which is the last 1,000 years. This is the traditional hockey stick graph that indeed looks very hockey sticky. But you could scroll this for literally forever and you would never find the video that this graph is about. Like, you just find the ones that we're used to seeing, like the ones that do a good job of showing average temperature anomaly over time.
By hiding the complexity, man exploits widespread ignorance of physics and math.
He doesn't do that. The graph shows global average surface temperature anomaly, and it does a good job of that. He published it in 1998. There were maybe some problems with it then, but this is a normal thing about science, is that like you see an important graph and people are like, okay, let's examine it from some angles, and then we'll continue to publish other versions of this graph and we'll see if they come out the same, and they do. And as you will see, this video admits that they do in the weirdest possible way. I cannot believe how this video ends. It's so strange.
Here's a more recent hockey stick chart, this one published by the US government's Global Climate Change Research Program. It measures record high temperatures in the US using ratios. The red bars show the ratio of record high to record low daily temperatures, and the blue bars show the ratio of record low to record high daily temperatures. If there were more record highs than record lows, you see a red line. If there were more record lows than record highs, you see a blue line. And the bar's height is the ratio.
With that in mind, this is a great graph. This graph tells you exactly what it means. That right now there are way more record highs than there are record lows going on. Which, I don't know, like, is that terrifying? If I understand the graph and it tells me what it's trying to tell me, it's not really terrifying. What it is like expressing reality to me, that there are way more record highs than there are record lows. But then, oh God, I cannot. This is what he says.
The only reason to present the data as a ratio is to create a scary visual in which the alarming-looking red bars get taller and taller.
No, there's so many good reasons to express this as a ratio, and he's gonna tell us them. He's gonna tell us the reasons why it's better to express it as a ratio.
The chart is labeled record warm daily temperatures are occurring more often, but as a theoretical physicist Stephen Koonin
Oh, God, it's so interesting that Stephen Koonin is a theoretical physicist. So we have Bloomberg columnists being an example of climate scientists being alarmists. We have Michael Mann, who is a climate activist. And then we have Stephen Koonin, who is a theoretical physicist. Okay, like all of these things are true, but you're picking. You're picking which title you're giving to people. Like you could say former oil industry executive Stephen Koonin. You could say lead climate contrarian Stephen Koonin. Like you could call Stephen Koonin a lot of things, and theoretical physicist is certainly one of those things. But you've picked which one you're going to call him, whereas you've picked what you're going to call Michael Mann. Honestly, if you didn't do these little things, I would believe that you believe your BS. But you do these little things, and it makes it very clear that you don't believe your BS. You're trying to manipulate me.
explained in his 2021 book, that's not what it shows. Kuhn graphed the number of record...
All right. Kuhn graphed the number of record high temperatures and the number of record low temperatures. This is a weird freaking graph, and it has a lot of information hiding inside of it that you're not gonna get unless you spend a lot of time with it, which I did last night in bed when I should have been going to bed and sleeping, but I didn't for you. So a weird thing about this graph is that records basically started being kept in 1850. In the US. But not everywhere, right? Like we didn't have a climate station in Missoula, Montana because Missoula, Montana was not yet colonized. It was the land of the Salish and Kootenai people. So when we say that like when records began being kept, we generally mean 1850, and we don't start counting there as being a record high until like 30 years after that, because it doesn't make sense to have like the third year be the record high. So three different things are affecting the shape of this graph at the same time, and they all affect it in different directions. So the first thing that's happening is that there are more places where we can have record highs. In 1895, you couldn't have a record high in Missoula because we hadn't been collecting data from Missoula for long enough. So that's making it so that there might be more record highs over time. Second, though, as time goes on, it's harder to have a record. So if it's only been 30 years, it's easier for there to be a record than if it's been 100 years, right? There's just like a time thing. Like if there's been a lot of time for records to happen, it's harder to have a record. And so that makes it so the number of records is going to go lower over time. And then we have the third thing that's impacting this chart, and that is how hot the Earth is. That's really the thing that we care about. So how would we get that graph out of these data? I have an idea. Ratios! Every one of these years has the same impact from the other two factors. So it's the same amount of time from 1850. There are the same number of active weather stations collecting data for every one of these years. Different from year to year, but for any individual year, it's the same. And so what would you do? How would you correct for that? Well, you just take a ratio every year and see how that changes year over year. Oh my God, what an elegant solution. But apparently the only reason you could possibly do that is because you wanted to show a scary graph. What are you talking about, guy? Have you never been around a graph?
Only when you express the figures as a ratio does it make it look like record high temperatures are increasing.
Only when you express it as a ratio does it tell you anything about the world.
What's actually going on is that the number of record high temperatures is holding steady, while the number of record cold days is decreasing.
What would you expect to have happen if the Earth was getting warmer? What the fuck is going on? I hope this is a valid crash out. 500,000 people watch this video. So first of all, the number of record warm days is not staying steady, it's going up. It's very clearly going up.
The number of record high temperatures is holding steady, while the number of record cold days is decreasing.
16, 17, 18, 20, 21. In what world is that holding steady? So as I said, there's a bunch of really subtle manipulations going on here, and one of the manipulations in this video, and you're gonna see it real soon again, and I'm gonna crash out about it again, is that things getting hotter is really scary. But things getting less cold isn't scary. And so he's gonna focus on things getting less cold. And that's what we're doing here. Now, obviously the difference between 1,000 and 200 is different than the difference between 1,600 and 2,100. But both of those things are signals that the Earth is getting warmer.
The climate scientist Zeke Hausfather, who has accused Kuhn of cherry-picking data, has generated yet another hockey stick chart. This one showing the percentage of the world that reached record high temperatures each decade from the 1850s onward.
I'm going to spend less time on this because honestly, as far as I can tell, this isn't a very good graph. Now, it is not a graph that came out of a paper. It's a graph that came out of somebody's Substack, and then a Bloomberg columnist saw it and he was like, oh my God, this is a scary graph. But then if you correct the graph, it's less scary. It's less scary. It's still scary. It's less scary than having 2020, a year when this was published. I think they only had 2 years of data. So 2020 and 2021 having 35% of the like world's months that had the hottest. It's a freaking confusing chart. Like you would never use this chart, which is why it's never used. We're talking about this chart being bad, but no one's ever seen it before. I went to the guy's Substack who published it. No one's seen it. It had like 25 likes. We are focusing on nothing. So cherry picking is the thing that we talk about with data, where you're like, oh, I just want to show you like the good data. What this guy is clearly doing, he's cherry picking his two least favorite graphs in a world of tens of thousands of climate charts that he could have picked out that would show a quite alarming thing going on with respect to the amount of energy in the Earth system. But he's picked out his two least favorite graphs. One of them he's wrong about. That graph was fine. As long as you understand what that graph is saying, that graph is telling you the truth. This one, I think mostly because there were a lot of places in 1850 where we weren't collecting data, is not as good. And there's like weird like things, and there's ways to correct for it. He's going to show you the correct graph in a moment here.
The same organization that provided Hausfather's data set publishes another data set that accounts for measurement uncertainty, which I use to generate this chart. It's more limited than the dataset Housefather used. It also ends in September 2021.
So here's our not terrifying graph. And I just want you to imagine a hockey stick laid over this. And it says partial decade, but that's just for 2021 and 2020. That's just 2 years. And it's roughly at the level of all of 1960. So yes, you corrected the graph. It is less alarming. But if you were to put 5 of these on top of each other, and you can project, I can't say for sure that that's what's going to happen or that's what's happened. I don't know. We could rerun this with 2026 data. But if you did that, you see that we're still going up. It's alarming.
It's not a terrifying hockey stick showing an explosion of heat, but it does suggest a statistically significant trend. But I wouldn't recommend either of these charts as a measure of climate change.
What would you recommend? Would you recommend perhaps global average temperature anomaly? The man graph? The hockey stick? The one people actually look at? Would you recommend that one? Which one would you recommend? And the amazing thing is, the answer is yes! That's the one he recommends! But before we get to that, we're gonna do something insane. So here's our global heat maximums. We're having a lot more of them than we used to have. But why don't we do this, everybody? Why don't we do this?
We can use the same data set used to illustrate global heat maximums to graph global heat minimums.
That's exactly what we'd expect. Maybe we should, chart the ratio between those two things and see if that gives us anything useful.
This shows the most dramatic effect of global warming, which is the near disappearance of record cold months.
This one showing the disappearance of record cold months. This is the one that you think is the most dramatic. Now you and me, let's talk to each other about whether or not this graph is more or less dramatic than this graph. Because to me, they're roughly the same amount of dramatic. They're pretty equally dramatic. We have 0% of record cold months basically happening in 2020. We have 16% happening in the 2010s, probably 18 or 19 or 20% of them happening in the 2020s. The only thing that would possibly make you think that this graph is more dramatic than this one is that he told you that. Why did he tell you that?
Humans living in most places may not miss these cold snaps, but they are an unambiguous warning of potential future problems.
People may not miss these cold snaps! The entire western United States is about to catch on fire! There's no snowpack! What the f going on? I live in Missoula, Montana. The trout and the skiing is all we've got! It's all we've got! And they both are dependent upon the snow falling in the mountains. The snow has to fall in the mountains for the trout to survive. And the trout have to survive for the entire tourism industry to exist. What's happening? The snow has to fall in the mountains. So, again, it's now on the paper. He kind of implied it earlier, but now he's really saying it out loud. He's still implying it. He's implying it in a way that you probably wouldn't notice if you were just watching the video. That's not so bad for there to be less cold. Why would we be worried about there being less cold? That's kind of fine. No, that is not an argument the problem is not that I'm going to be hot in the summer. That's the thing that most people think. And I guess that's fine and we can lean on that. The problem is not that I'm going to be hot in the summer or that I'm going to be less cold in the winter. The problem is that we have built our entire society on the climate acting a particular way. And if the climate starts to act different ways than that, we have famines. We have climate refugees. We run out of water in places. We have to completely upend agriculture. We have infrastructure in place that we will no longer be able to use, and we have needed infrastructure in places where it isn't. That's the problem is not just and you're showing a guy a video of a guy shoveling his sidewalk. You're being oh my God, nobody worries about there not being cold. That's not the problem isn't that I'm cold or hot. The problem is that our current infrastructure is built for our current climate, and if it changes quickly, it will be very bad for humans. And I'm a human, and I love humans, and I think that we should do good things for them, which creating energy is good. That's a good thing to do for humans. But if we don't put resources toward creating energy in new ways, to doing things in new ways that have less impact on the climate, we're going to have a lot of suffering. And the case you are making, the only thing we need to do is care about this. We need to care about it, and we will take it on. People are amazing at solving problems, but not if we don't recognize them, not if we don't think that they're a big deal. And that's the scariest, hardest thing about climate, right? It can be too big to see the whole problem. It's also a global problem that has a bunch of non-global inputs, and all of those non-global inputs have to take it seriously and work together, even though they are somewhat oppositional to each other. Honestly, increasingly oppositional to each other. I have no doubt that we will take on the climate crisis. I just want us to be able to do it with the least amount of suffering possible. I don't think that means you should have existential dread. I've never said that. I don't think that means that you shouldn't have children. I don't think that means that there will be an apocalypse. I think that when things start to get a little apocalyptic, we'll actually start to take action with the tremendous amount of resources that we have at our disposal. The richest 1% of Americans have $50 trillion. And I don't know, maybe if we left them to their own devices, they'd just build air-conditioned bunkers for themselves. But I think that they want to have a society, and I think also we can compel them by law to help contribute to making the world livable. But not if we don't think there's a problem. And I understand that this is hard to find the balance between alarmism that pushes people into despair and rosy pictures of climate change that it just means you'll have to shovel less, making people not think that it's a problem at all. But there is a balance. I'm here. That's where I am. That's where Matt Farrell is. There's lots of people making great content on YouTube about this where you can stay engaged and still feel hopeful. Earlier in this video, I searched on Google for climate graph. What's the graph that you'd look at? The main one that everybody looks at. It's just global mean temperature anomaly. If you take the average temperature back in the day, how much higher or lower are we than that in any given year over time? That's the man graph. That's what he did. And importantly, it's what people have continued to do over the last 25, 30 years. We have continued to update that graph and continue to do a better job of it. So perhaps that's the graph that we should all agree on and say we should be looking at that one. Because Lord have mercy, it's the one he's about to show us.
Or take this estimate of annual global mean temperature anomaly since 1880 in blue.
So we've got here is the most misleading graph in the video. I mean, maybe not. Maybe the other one from the Substack is more misleading, but that's nobody looked at that. But lots of people looked at this. Here is our most misleading graph in the video, which is just the hockey stick graph stretched out and also given a bunch of space on the other side so that he can draw a yellow line through it and have that yellow line do whatever he wants it to do. And watch the yellow line, everybody. Watch it with me.
With a simple fit to the data in yellow.
Oh, it just sort of goes off. It doesn't continue to accelerate upward. We haven't done any statistical analysis. We just sort of make it go upward, and maybe it'll hit 2 degrees by 2080 or something. We're not going to get it all the way to 2 degrees. We're going to stop it at 2058 maybe. But now we're going to talk about how this isn't a hockey stick, and I'm going to lose my mind.
It's no hockey stick showing a sudden change.
Is it not a hockey stick showing sudden change? What if instead of having it start at 1880, we had it starting 1,000 years ago, which is what man did, which is the whole hockey stick idea. You squish it down and you show that climate has been very stable for a huge amount of human flourishing and agricultural explosion, and then it's shooting up like fucking mad. And 2 degrees Celsius is a huge amount of extra energy in the atmosphere. It's literally the hockey stick graph. It's no hockey stick. Well, then why didn't you like the hockey stick graph at the beginning when you just showed us the same graph? This is insane.
But it does show accelerating warming that will bring us near 2 degrees centigrade by 2060.
He says that very calmly. Look, as I've said, I think that if we end up, and I don't think that we will, I think that we'll figure it out. But if we end up at 2 degrees Celsius by 2060, which is not that long from now, I'm going to be alive. I'm going to be alive. I have a child who is not yet 10 years old. He's going to be my age, maybe. That's a lot of warming. That's a lot of extra energy in the system. That's a lot of agriculture that's going to have to move. That's a lot of, potential ocean currents changing. There's big potential impacts. We don't know what they are. People talk about how scary geoengineering is. We're doing it. This is geoengineering. We are adding so much energy to the Earth system. It is scary. We don't know what it means. Is it a 5% chance of super bad outcome? Is it a 30% chance of a super bad outcome? I don't know. Climate scientists work really hard on trying to answer those questions, but what they don't say is, well, that is an indication that there is a problem, but certainly not something that we should be super alarmed about. Because what does that imply? It implies, go back to your business, everybody. We don't actually need advocates in this space. We don't actually need climate scientists working on this. We don't need to spend money subsidizing solar or geothermal or potential next generation clean energy. We don't need any of that. We don't need to do these big crazy things. Everybody calm down, go back to your business, spend your time thinking about how scared you are of trans people for some reason.
There's plenty of good news too.
There's plenty of good news too. We're going to look at a graph that's good news, but he's just going to show us one version of that graph.
This chart shows the number of kilowatt hours of energy needed to generate $1 of real gross domestic product in the US.
This is great news. I love to see the decoupling between GDP and kilowatt hours. And it'd be better to show me GDP versus CO2 emissions, but you didn't do that. For many countries, though, CO2 per unit of GDP has decreased dramatically. Not for everywhere, but what we're not going to see in this video is a chart of how for every year so far, basically in the history of humans since the Industrial Revolution, the amount of carbon dioxide being emitted in the atmosphere has gone up and continues to go up every year. Not, there's more this year, we are emitting more this year than we emitted last year. And that's like not a little problem, because that's a lot. It's a lot of CO2. It's like way more than we emitted in 1990 as a planet. Like a lot more. A lot more. Now, global CO2 emissions are looking like they may fairly soon reach a peak. And that is not because it just happened. It is because people are working on this because they're worried about it. It is because the people in the countries where this is happening say to their governments, it is worth making the planet more stable, even if there are some drawbacks to that. It's because people are choosing to buy electric cars. It's because people in Europe are figuring out how to not use as much natural gas, in part because they want to lower their climate impact, in part because they don't want to help fund Russia's war in Ukraine. Global CO2 emissions are so big. They're so big. It's not just that right now we continue to add every year to the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere. It is that we continue to add to the amount that we add every year in the atmosphere. And that should be something that worries you. It should be something that makes you engaged in this problem. It should be something that makes you think, I should listen to Volts, the podcast with David Roberts, so that I can understand better how we're trying to take on this problem. I will put links to channels in the description. If you have some that you'd like to suggest to me, please do that as well in the comments. This is a thing that we do need to be engaged with. And the idea that 461,000 people saw this video that is making the case that climate scientists are here to alarm you with no evidence. He cherry-picked 3 graphs in this video. One of them is bad. One of them, I think, is way better than the one he said was better. And one of them he uses again as an example of a good graph, but he makes it bad by making it more manipulative, by stretching it out and then drawing a trend line over it that has nothing to do with reality. It's embarrassing. It is an embarrassing piece of punditry. The fact that he says it all so calmly, and I know I have not been calm in this video. Maybe I would be more convincing if I was. I don't feel calm though. I don't like it when people lie to people. We're gonna end this video though with a message that I can stand by. And it's from our friend here, whose name I don't know. But he does say something at the end that I frankly agree with, and we can high-five over.
Sensible progress requires honestly evaluating climate change and devising realistic strategies to address it.
That's right. We should do that. And you know who's good at that? It is all the people working on trying to understand this problem and trying to solve it. And yeah, you just spent a whole video bad-mouthing the people who do that first thing, making the case with no evidence. You presented no evidence except for like one guy who had a Substack that got 20 likes. That climate scientists manipulate data to alarm us. I'm sure sometimes that happens. I bet looking at climate change all the time freaks people out and they feel like we should be more alarmed than we are. And I bet sometimes they aren't good communicators and sometimes maybe they're even manipulative, but I doubt any of them are as good at that as this video is. I just think it is a masterwork of lots of little tricks to subtly make you feel less worried about climate change. All right, I'm editing this video and I just wanted to do a quick list here. He cherry-picked the graphs that he didn't like, but he also linked a worse graph to one that was kind of fine to make that look like it was a bad one. And that one was actually published by climate scientists. And then he takes those two as an example to paint the entire climate science community with the broadest brush of they are alarmists because one of these graphs was bad, and then I used that one to make a second one look also bad. So first cherry picking, using that cherry picking, then do broad brushing, which this is a normal thing in polemics. He also will preload us with ideas. Like he'll say that the cold chart is more dramatic when it's not. It's like the same level of drama as the heat chart, but he's preloaded us with that idea. He chooses to emphasize low salience frames, so things you would be less worried about, like there will be fewer cold days, and isn't that kind of a good thing? He also preloads us when he frames the experts with their titles. So this one guy is the theoretical physicist, he's very credible. This other guy's a climate activist, he's not credible. Also, he frames non-action as action. So the correct moral thing to do, given this problem, which does exist, but isn't that big of a deal, is nothing, which is huge. That's wonderful. That means I don't have to worry about this? How great. And finally, and this one sort of exists inside of the cracks, he says up front that he's going to make the case that climate change isn't something you really need to worry that much about, and it's mostly alarmist. And he never makes that case. He says he's going to make it, and then he gives you a bunch of information, and it makes you conclude that he has made the case, but he does not. I'm going to make a case right now, real quick, which is that you should care about this. It should be something that informs how you move through the world, how you vote, what you buy, what you invest in, the conversations you have with people in the world, and like straight down to the kinds of podcasts you listen to. Climate change is a big deal, but since I graduated from grad school, like a project I did in grad school was starting a blog where I talked about how technology can lower our impact on the environment in various ways, and that is good. And I called that blog Eco Geek. And that was like my first job that was me, that I started for myself. Sometimes I tell people that I've been an internet creator for over 30 years, and that's because I was a blogger before I was a YouTuber. And weirdly, EcoGeek kind of still exists, though it is now a different thing. It is a line of household products at the all-profit to charity store at good.store. And these products were created specifically to lower our impact on the environment. One of the ways is very simple, that like when you buy stuff at the store, oftentimes it's like mixed with water, and that just makes it heavier, and you have to put it in like big, thick plastic, because like if a jug of Tide gets punctured, it's a real mess. But you don't actually have to do that. If you just dehydrate all of the water out of that, you get a product that's much easier to ship, that doesn't require anywhere near as much plastic, if any plastic at all. And so we have things like solid dish soap and laundry sheets, bleach alternative for the laundry, these little tablets that you just dissolve inside of a spray bottle. Like this is a whole spray bottle's worth of stuff. But you don't have to throw away the spray bottle at the end. We also just started a partnership with Save Trees, where you can get 100% bamboo toilet paper, zero plastic involved, and carbon neutral delivery. But I really do think about how my life is in part, like the goal of it is to interface with this problem, whether that's what we're doing at good.store, where all the profit, by the way, goes to charity. And for these products, it goes to the Coral Reef Alliance. Coral reefs are one of the most impacted ecosystems by climate change. And so you really need to take off the pressure in other ways so that they can last, hopefully, through whatever we're going to deal with here. Certainly not all of them, but like as many as possible. So I think about that. I think about videos like this. And I think about the fact that Reason, which is where this video came from, is like they don't have to make money. They can just make their content and lose money every time they make a YouTube video because they're funded by billionaires. They're funded by the Koch brothers. They're funded by like a guy who made all of his money in like energy trading markets. And like, I could never imagine doing that, right? Like I could never imagine some left-wing billionaire coming along and being like, I just want to fund you and you can make all the content you want and don't worry about anything ever again. Like I could just never take that money, right? And so it's asymmetric in some ways, but it is also asymmetric in another way, which is that this side, the climate side, has like actual reality on its side. And that's actually quite powerful. And hopefully it will continue to be more powerful as people get better at not being manipulated. Anyway, let's play connections. Marvel. Oh, well, that's not it. Dark Horse is also a comics company. Is Fantagraphics? Sounds like it could be. Fantagraphics starts with it. Oh, well, oh, man. Winner. You know, that was easier than you thought it was gonna. Does anybody else see it? Does everybody else see it? Do you see it? Do you see the purple? Because Fantagraphics, I mean, that was too much of a giveaway. Fanta, Crush, Fresca, and Pepsi are all sodas. I saw that purple. I'm gonna wager that that's the purple. It is. Oh, that's a huge win for me. Okay, and then we got Voltage, AC, DC, and maybe... Nope. If that's not in there, that's amazing. And Power. Okay, yeah. Those are all those, like, electricity terms, I guess. Marvel, a Wonder, wow, this is a 1 out of 5. Marvel, Wonder, Goggle, and Stare, which is going to be the next. Dark Horse, Sleeper, Underdog, Longshot. Those are all equally easy. I mean, I did not imagine that I was going to solve that in 35 seconds. What's the hardest of those? They're all, I have no way I'm going to get the reverse rainbow on this. They're all equally easy. Okay, let's assume that this, no, everybody knows this. Sleeper, Underdog, no, they're all equally easy. I'm going to get, it's like a total toss-up. Okay. Sleeper, Underdog, a Marvel, and okay, now I got confused. To Stare, to Goggle, to Wonder, to Marvel. A Sleeper, a Dark Horse, a Long Shot, an Underdog. Okay, yeah. I got confused. Okay, pushing that. No, I'm gonna do Sleeper, Dark Horse, Long Shot. No, that's so easy. Marvel, Wonder, Stare, Goggle. Oh my God, I should have, is this it? Is this the blue? No. Well, that was never gonna happen, you guys. Okay, well that was That was the one of fivest of all time. Yeah, 60% of players got that one on the first try. 92% solve rate. Loved it, though. Very fun. Thank you. Again, Good.Store. Be an early adopter of the new technology of toilet paper made from bamboo.